Welcome to you all. Now we have everyone sitting on stage. This is an amazing panel discussion. All of the panels today have been fantastic, but this is like the icing on the cake. Juan Carlos Melero has set the backdrop for this, but now in this panel discussion we will talk about industrialized public housing development, and let me insist on the fact that you can send your doubts, questions and comments and even suggestions through Mentimeter. You have to go to menti.com and there introduce a code and we will convey your messages to the persons on the floor. The moderator now is going to be architect Ignacio Aparicio. We are going to listen to you with in a very keen way. Thank you very much. We are living a historic period. This is a turning point. A public institute is thinking about hiring or commissioning housing units, basically almost on the verge of the state's contract law, complying with the law, of course, but on the sidelines, I mean, pushing the boundaries of the contract law. And I think this opens up what Juan Carlos Melero explained to us is very innovative. In France, for instance, they are thinking about using that chart we saw before, and even the possibility that contractors and subcontractors can establish contracts with the authorities directly. I applaud the municipal initiative of developing buildings and industrializing public housing development and involving users and keeping keeping up the ideas of sustainability and public vocation. We have encountered plenty of difficulties, as Juan Carlos Melero mentioned. Having an industrialized project with a project which is outsourced with the contractors only trying to push to squeeze their subcontractors to the limit, to choke them almost, to achieve a profit that otherwise would be unachievable because the tender is submitted at a very low cost, at a very low price. This initiative is this situation is so complex that we have asked 4 people who are very knowledgeable about the sector to come and give their opinions about how things can be changed. I am sort of a dictator moderator, and I will tell them what they need to say. I will dictate what they need to say. They might pay attention to me and comply or not, but we have called Teresa Batlle, who's an architect from the most important office in Catalonia in what regards to industrialization, the office that she shares with Felipe Pic, and they have been working on industrialization and sustainability for a number of years already, and they are now looking at what circular economy can entail for the building industry. Tell us, based on your experience, what all of this means. I would like to thank the Institute for having invited us. As Ignacio said, we've been struggling in favor of industrialization for many years. We have done a number of projects with several industrialized public housing developments, and I believe we currently have an opinion about the opportunities and difficulties that industrialization offers. But I think I have a presentation, and I've been told I could have it put up on the screen. So if you allow me, Ignacio asked me to talk about the circular economy, and as he well said, Industrialization takes us directly to talk about the environment, and industrialization and the environment together force us to choose the circular economy. I'm really sorry not to see you because there's too much light on, well, the light is shining on my eyes, but I'm sorry not to see you here in the room. We know that resources are limited, and extracting, manufacturing, and using and then throwing away stuff is not a good system. So we need to rethink all our activities, both the construction and any other activities, thinking about the circular economy. This is a slide from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which has been working on the circular economy for so many years. And as you can see, there are some wonderful news. The EU has identified the building sector, the real estate sector, not as a diffuse sector, but we now know the impact we have. We know 50% of all the extracted material, all the materials we extract are used in construction. 35% of all the waste in the EU come from the building industry, and 54% of all materials going to the dumping sites, the landfill, come from demolition. This is work from several building councils from around Europe, and this is called Building Life. However, I wanted to tell you about a building we just finished. This is not housing, however, it is a building where we've worked more intensively in the circular economy. We were able to build it, and maybe that has a lot to do with what Juan Carlos said and what Ignacio is interested in. We were able to build this thanks to the fact that we were fully aligned with the developer, the architect, the contractors and subcontractors. So we really need to be all accomplices. We need to work collaboratively. I know it's difficult, but this project was in-depth collaborative work. It wasn't simple at all. There are lots of there's a lot of inertia among the different stakeholders. We have philosophies, but then imagine the works leader is not familiar with these and so on. But in any case, the circular economy starts with the architectural project. I guess you're interested in knowing what happens with the materials, but it starts with the architectures. So we need to be versatile. We need to be flexible. We need to have mixed use, which is another very complex issue in the regulations. It needs to be feasible, it needs to be flexible, it needs to be sustainable. Durability is an issue, biodiversity too. Most of the meetings are done in the outer courtyards in this building, so we're actually giving the building profitability. All these common spaces are becoming profitable as well, not only the built or the housing units. And then we need to, well, to have minimum energy demand to generate energy and to promote health and wellness. This building, from day one, it is true that the collaborative project started with the executive project, and so it was almost a decision from the developer to work 100% in the circular economy. And in this building, after a consultant which has been behind chasing all the subcontractors and has really set very clear guidelines, we know how much the building weighs, we know how many resources we have used, we know the makeup of the different materials, we have clear knowledge about all the waste we have created, we know how much waste we have created in manufacturing and also in the construction work. And that was zero in the construction work, so we didn't have to pay a fee for that. So all the waste that is produced in the factories is also reused. And I'm sure that this is something that happens in factories as well, but we are now recording this, and well, industrialization and the circular economy intends to reduce all the waste created during construction work. So we now have a passport for the building, so to say. We know exactly how it was created since its inception all the way to the day we give it to its tenant. And as this is circular economy, we have to assemble and disassemble. So the building is a source of materials, and the building in itself has got a value, and we will know how valuable it is over time. And this leads to another topic. I don't know how that could be introduced in the contract law. Maybe the constructor or the developer is not providing a product but a service. Maybe in 5 years' time, the owner or the user might go and say, hey, this window has become obsolete. I'll take it home. It has become a raw material for me, and I'll give you another, a better window with a more performing window. So the whole building cycle is changing, and this introduces something which is seriously missing in environmental terms, because we do not only devise and build, we have a building that has a whole life cycle that is already taken into account since its inception. Thank you.
I'm sure she has convinced you that a building like this one would not be possible without collaboration and mutual trust, and the possibilities that are being opened are very important. So we started off with industrialization, but the idea is to talk more and more, and the possibility of incorporating circular economy in our housing projects. Easier said than done. No, uh, it's important to have access to the quarry, so that's part of the pillars now as well. We will hand over now to Francesc Monells. I met him years ago, and he was the project manager for one of the projects that I was involved in, and I didn't like him back in the day because we was supposed to tell me what I should do with the client. So, well, it was I didn't tell you before. Well, that was our beginnings, but we learned so much. I learned as well so much from you then, because that's constant learning. There was professional efficacy, and it distilled in everything they did. He has taken part in our proposal as well, so he's collaborated with us, and he's here to tell us what he does in this private sphere, what's been done in the public realm, and what's being done in other countries, so that it sounds more natural, so that whatever we are discussing doesn't sound so much as a novelty, but rather as something natural. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you for recalling those moments, our beginnings. Juan Carlos introduced the new contracting systems, and you said that it was borderline, that it was pushing the boundaries of contract laws. Well, in some cases, we've had to do real experiments for quite a lot of years now. So we are here to talk about industrialization, and the management is also part of it. Industrialization, this industry, especially in the housing industry is not an end per se, but industrialization needs to make sense so that we can reach a goal. And Juan Carlos, I think that the graph that you were showing in relation to the costs, that was a clear example. A system, a construction system that's more or less industrialized makes sense if we manage to produce something with better conditions, better benefits, or whether deadlines are shorter, with the change in management system, as you proved, has shown that in terms of costs, also in terms of calendars, it's been an improvement, and that actually makes sense. It makes sense then to try and change the system. Of course, I don't want to give you the idea that industrializing per se is a means. I'm sorry, is an end. No, it's actually a means. So, from my perspective, there are several degrees to industrialization. So that's the key, depending on the size of the project or the development. We need to work on the right industrialization degree, because there are industrialized systems in the market, and they will be applicable depending on the volumes or of units, of household units that are going to be developed. And then I'll discuss what I know more about management systems, because my experience in the public sector and in the traditional system, let's say, is similar to probably what any of you have experienced. Lack of trust, working environment with these tenders, auctions, a system that just puts pressure on the contractors and subcontractors actually doing the work. So it's mistrust right from the beginning, pressure from the beginning, and that's not positive by all means. So since 1983 in my company, we've been working with models in the private sector. So maybe not with such precision, because you described stages and different phases and elements that are very, very tightly fit, because you need to abide by the contract law, etc. We try to be more flexible, and that's the purpose, to increase trust and promote trust. So to involve material manufacturers in the beginning of the project, and the professionals as well, so that the calendars and the conditions and the deadlines and everything is more positive, so the climate is more positive, without taking, I mean, without neglecting that the construction industry is productive. So each participant needs to have, needs to achieve their goals and their outcomes. I'm glad that you can work with this system now. It's been hard for me to work in the public sector. We've not worked much in the public sector, so I see that there's an opportunity for me in the future, because we can implement those systems in the public sector as well. So if we comply with the laws, if we can fragment the contracts, and at the same time we can keep the independence of the different management team members, because that's the idea, the developer and the works direction. So the contributions that we can obtain coming from manufacturers and suppliers, especially because the industrial fabric that we have is very powerful. So if we can integrate them into the stage, into the project phase, the public sector will enjoy part of the advantages in the private sector, because this flexibility, allowing to hire in a direct, more rapid manner, well, sometimes that's a problem in the public sector. So the fact that an effort is made so that this is possible is an improvement as such. It's an improvement per se. So we will go in the line of industrialization, clearly, to a lesser or greater extent, but we will be going in the right direction. So that is my contribution. Thank you. We are now going to hear from 011H, Jose Manuel, founding partner. When we were talking about this, I was asked, are we going to find these companies, contractors that are clearly transparent in the way they deal with the professionals so that they can split the profit as agreed in the beginning? Can we have such modern companies? Do you think we can find them? Because the companies that we are used to working with are more traditional, are more conservative and more defensive. So Jose Manuel is here because he's representing one of these modern companies. Well, I guess because that's what you've been invited, right? So you're going to explain this probably because your company can be counted on, right? I would like to thank the Barcelona City Hall for having invited us. It is a privilege to be here and share with you what we are doing and continue learning, because for us, learning is fundamental. So I would like to thank all of you because you all shared your views and your intents. So we share 99% of your rationale, I would say, especially when it comes to right to housing, sustainability, and collaborative vision. You were referring, Ignacio, to this inertia. That's the background or the past of the sector. And I was talking to Juan Carlos a few minutes ago, and I was telling him that we come from more digital environments, maybe. So the word that defines the situations that we've lived is generosity, because we've seen the willingness to collaborate. So we are very, very grateful indeed. At 011H, we produce sustainable buildings. Sustainable for us means that we take into account the total life cycle, and the emissions are reduced by 80–90% compared to the same building created by means of more traditional techniques. And there are three fundamental aspects related to this: industrialization, as you were saying, Francesc. Industrialization is not an end but a means. Indeed, industrialization in the wide sense of the word. So both on-site and off-site. I'll explain this. Then second pillar, digitalization, because that's the common thread. It's the catalyzer so that industrialization is possible. One of our hypotheses, that's why probably we talk about industrialization, but it's not a reality yet. We think it's because we lack the digital capacity so that the interlinking of different stakeholders, this needs to be made possible. So we need the digitalization is paramount. And then thirdly, that's our vision at our company. We promote the use of sustainable materials. That's one of the engines for us to exist. The construction industry is highly polluting per se, and we as citizens, as people, need to be an active change agent. So we are also thankful to the private sector. I have three girls, three daughters now, and I'm proud to show to them what we are working on. It's a hospital installation made of wood, and that's very, very gratifying for me to be able to explain why we do what we do. So if we come closer to your question, actually, industrialization in this collaborative way of seeing life. Our concept of industrialization doesn't have to do with large investments or large factories with captive proprietary systems. No, we want to develop an ecosystem made up of professionals, contractors, subcontractors that are maybe closer to us or not that close to us, but fully integrated. Integrated in three ways. Culturally speaking, so sharing the same views about life, so wanting to improve together. Also in terms of contracts, collaborative contracts that makes us get closer and closer based on trust. And thirdly, digitalization. With our platform, we are a construction company and we are powerful in terms of design and collaborative design. So we want to incorporate all the links in the chain, and we call our collaborators partners because we want them to cooperate with us, from the developer to the heavy industry partners or not that heavy industry, design phase, planning phase, manufacturing model phase, totally digitalized execution model, and after sales. All of it is fully integrated and digitalized so that the partners can get together and share their views on the project and share their experiences. So that's why we say that digitalization is our superpower. What does this mean? If we talk about target valid design with our partner for toilets, so we've reduced the price. For bathrooms, I'm sorry, we've reduced the prices with our wood or timber partner. We are now cutting down on costs, and the price is very competitive, and delivery times are very competitive, and the quality is very high. I'm referring to integrating partners. Again, partners, not suppliers. And digitalization in terms of off-site processes. We have developed a software to define what needs to be done and how. So we manufacture in wood at the area of Manresa. So with the QR code, you can follow the evolution of the process. We have a digitalized system, and whenever there is an error, a mistake, everything can track this off-site. And there's also quite a lot of industrialization on-site, because that's an important part. In the work site, we've developed an in-house software that we share with all those involved, because that's our working methodology, and our partners know on site what needs to be done, and they can upload whatever they are doing in real time, so that we are all on the same page. And that's our view. We want to help improve the industry from the point of view of collaboration and sustainability, and the idea is to produce quality and affordable housing, so that the whole context is really more integrative. So sustainability is the key, and collaboration, and more collaboration. Ignacio, again, thank you for the invitation. Thanks for this willingness to innovate, because that's very important. I see the enthusiasm and the willingness to share, and that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is like music to my ears, because half of what you said are things I did not understand, says the speaker, but I have visited some of the construction sites that you have been involved in, and I am amazed of the amount of control at every point in time that you have with digital devices. They visualize things as predetermined components way before things shared with the subcontractors and so on, and that part, as well as the relationship that they have with their industrial partners, are something that creates new opportunities to things that we have been discussing so far. So really happy to hear from you. And now I would have to introduce Sandra Bestraten. She's the president of the Guild of Architects of Catalonia, the Architects Association. We wanted her to come here and make peace. Well, this Architect Association has been really well opposed, heavily opposed to these exceptional systems for projects and works. And when we showed this document to her, the document that Juan Carlos mentioned to the dean, then she loved it, and we wanted to convey this somehow, because within the project, people wonder, will architects be willing to work with the different subcontractors and industrials? Yes, of course, they will, because if they want to have the possibility to choose, they will surely, if they're good architects, they will want to choose. This enhances the autonomy of the architect. But in the complex world of today, I mean, architects need to partner up with others, otherwise they will not be able to come with it. And here we have invited also Ana Guanter. She is the director of innovation. She's the head of innovation at Culmia. Sorry, I couldn't find the word. I'm so old that I can't find my words. At Culmia, they build a lot, and they build many buildings, especially for housing, under private management. We believe that, we've said that several times, and it's still on the air, how can we industrialize when you're not going to build over 500 housing units a year, or maybe 1,000? That's wishful thinking, but wouldn't it be counterintuitive? I will say two things, one now, one later. I think that there are many parallel impacts. One of them is the push towards those micro contractors so that they can join the sector from a different standpoint, not as the last on the row and see how you're going to squeeze them so that you can still make some money out of this. No, let's see if that small company can do a little bit of research and go over the punishment of having to prove everything else. What do we need for that? We need a network of industrial contractors which are, I don't know, 0 mile. For instance, the City Council of Barcelona has got some very well-known lampposts. Why don't they have very well-known bathrooms, for instance? I don't know, 14, 12, 10, 14, 12 bathroom builders, and then the architect can choose between them. Maybe you could have this sort of a sample of suppliers, and creating a network like that would generate lots of synergies. Does it sound familiar or unfamiliar, all of this, to you? Anna, thank you very much for your introduction. And I would also like to thank you for having invited us to this panel discussion. I think that we can't hear you. Now it's okay. Now we get the sound. Thank you. Now I'll have some echo here. You'll hear me from 2 locations. Well, thank you very much for having invited us to come to this panel. We have a great interest in industrialization. Actually, the joke Ignacio mentioned, we used to be Solvia, Bank de Sabadell Bank real estate company, and the developer company bought us, an investment fund bought the building activity, but it's the same team of people who've been working on this industry for so many years. And for many years, we have been concerned about industrialization. In 2015, we started working with industrialized housing units because we wanted new ways to control our buildings. We are a private developer and we want to have full control of the building, of costs, qualities, and timings and calendars and delivery times. So that's why we, as these criteria are so important for us, we looked at industrialization to see if we could achieve our goals, and we were really happy about that. It opened up our mind because we realized that the relationship between the builder and the developer should not be marked by mistrust, as usually happens, because at the moment it is full of mistrust. But when you start with this kind of philosophy, working with other mentalities and philosophies, our relationship changes. They become partners, not only partners with us, but with the architects, because architects will have a very heads up information way in advance, because I mean they have to participate in the basic project, and this is what we have been doing. These are our experiences. What does this offer? We have discovered collaboration. Some years ago, we signed a collaborative contract here in Barcelona, and now we are members of a working group with different kinds of companies, looking at how we should sign a collaborative contract so that the constructing company ends up being the reason of mistrust, but rather becomes another reason of concern. So the construction site became a very peaceful place when we started working with this philosophy, because everyone was looking for the same goals, everyone was focusing on the same things, and industrialized systems helped us understood new processes. Were not only to industrialize the construction in itself, but also our internal processes. They had to be, that helped us be more productive, more effective, if we were industrialized in our internal processes as well. And thanks to that, we have realized that in the end, this is helping us understand that our industry is becoming old. 17% of workers in the construction industry will retire in the next 5 years. We will need more people, more workers. We are out of workforce, and we believe that maybe industrialized construction might make our sector more attractive to young people who are not so keen on going to the building site, or women who, for forced constraints, were not part of the workforce. We have moved forward in the industrialization, and we've seen many of its positive elements. Let me make two additional comments. The first two experiences that we did with industrialization, we were still part of the bank, of the Sabadell Bank. And when we got the go-ahead, we had the money. Now that we are not under the umbrella of the bank, we need to get a mortgage, for instance, and get funding from the market. What happens now? We don't get the money unless we have a percentage of houses sold. That means that there are some gaps that in industrialization we might be quick, but there are some gaps that slow down the whole process. And not only that, very often they don't give us the money because they don't understand that construction outside of the location is also construction work. So we sometimes have problems in funding the project at this stage. We also believe that this will change in the future, but right now, this is one of the problems we encounter. Another problem is that we don't find large corporations who can industrialize. I know that you talked about micro subcontractors, but we are looking for macro, for large subcontractors who can industrialize processes. This is really hard. But now we just got a a lot from the Vive plan in Madrid to build affordable housing in a tender done in Madrid, in the metropolitan area of Madrid, not inside the city, but in the metropolitan area of Madrid. And we won the tender. There were 4 lots, 5,600 housing units in 15 different towns. We bid it for 3 of these, and in last October we got one of the lots, so 1,750 housing units in 5 different towns, and we got there with Aventia, an industrialization company. They are working on concrete. They are working on something that we have all been very familiar with for many years, but they use a system called Wallex. And the most interesting thing is that they are creating a whole ecosystem because they're bringing in their own suppliers. They have already had a couple of experiences in this kind of building, and they are reaching agreements. As you said, Jose Manuel, we are reaching really interesting agreements because there are certain commitments, there are certain guarantees, and they are innovating. All these companies that they have partnered up with, they are innovating to, I don't know, build their windows and place their windows in their concrete slabs. So now, in the specifications for the tender, we decided to shorten the times. So 80, 90 housing units developments is for 40. We build them in 14 months, and larger developments we build them in 21 months. And I think it's very good news that everything is ready. Everything is ready. We are currently drafting the base project, and we will soon start building. And as we know that we will get building licenses from the different municipalities, we know that we will be able to start the industrialized construction, and it's going to be a really interesting experience. The other concession has gone to AEDAS, and that is going to a traditional construction company. And I don't know, with the lack of workforce and components, I don't know how they're going to do, because I mean the specifications for the tender were very, very strict. I don't know if I said what I wanted, what you wanted, but at least that's what I wanted. That's my contribution. We've seen all these progresses that you are all doing, and all this relationship that you describe between the consultant you use in Madrid and their own partners shows that these networks are really lively. Although I understand that you prefer to have someone who is acting as a manager, as a controller, and I think that's well, that's another option. Things will change. Things are changing. And to conclude this first part, we're living this unique historical time. You've been talking a lot about trust and about open agreements, and along those lines, I think that the proposal by the Barcelona City Council is the perfect example. It is, we wanted to become a model, an example, and we hope that in the future, other buildings by other administrations will follow the same footsteps, even schools and hospitals, because you can industrialize even renovation. Even renovation, it becomes much easier, and then it is easier to have a direct relationship, and there is a long way to go on that field. I hope that I have convinced you that this is a model we hope to see growing and developing. Thank you very much.
Great, then let's see if there are questions for the panelists. With this new specification system, how do you work with the budget without the broken down prices? Yes, Ignacio, you said that this was historical because an institute was borderline, was trying to push the boundaries of legality. Well, that scared me. People in the authorities are strange, so at some point in time, I decided to read the full contract law. And there's an article, Article 99. Yes, that's the object of the contract. I'm going to read this clause, this article, because it's very interesting. It says the purpose of the contract needs to be determined. It may be defined depending on specific needs or functionalities that need to be complied with without limiting itself to a single solution or a unique solution. Angela, you're here, so take this into account because there's no single solution. Especially the contracts that can incorporate technological innovations or social or environmental that improve the sustainability of the building will be taken into account. Well, it's the same idea that we used in our process, is to define a maximum price and then some functionalities according to the law. So we need to describe the building that is intended, and this is an experience that we are having with this new system. And so far it's working just fine. And I have to say that the fact of working with a project that's been defined and narrowed down to the finest detail, this does not guarantee that you will be problem-free once the construction begins. So you can be part of a tender, you need to describe the functionalities and set a maximum price, and that's it really. Well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning it. I just read this last night, so it was fresh in my memory, and I just wanted to say something. There's a question for Anna. What is your strength concerning the projects that you have and that you have industrialized? I'm terribly sorry, but I cannot hear the speaker. We cannot translate, the microphone is not working. And now we hear her. And the second question is, what are you doing in terms of sustainability? Well, we take industrialization into account when faced with any project. But some are very strange. We have industrialized one project in Terrassa, a house that's attached, an attached house, and it's not been tender exactly, but we've spoken to many contractors and subcontractors, and we've asked them what they would do in terms of industrialization, and not very many respond when they see the volumes that we're discussing. When it's a small project, a small building, just one house, then maybe. Otherwise, it's more difficult. And now we have a couple of buildings that have been devised from the point of view of an industrialized system, and we are waiting to see what the sale prices will be. And in terms of sustainability and what we are doing in terms of sustainability, of course, all our projects, the aim is for all of them to be AA certificate. We have found out that with industrialization, the certificates are good for us because there are issues that have to do with energy, comfort, waste management, and this helps us a great deal. So we try to focus more and more along those lines. We see that there's a cost surplus here involved, and we are now incorporating these into our initial costs because we are seeing this right now. And there's a building, for instance, that we want to certify so that the level is very good, and we are working on part of a budget, at least 2% of the budget, and that implies quite an important figure. But we are indeed incorporating sustainability as a concept, because we can no longer build the way we used to. And of course, the buyers sometimes are not that interested, maybe more to the north of Spain. But now we have a figure, the institutional and foreign investors that come by from us. And this has opened up space and given us room in terms of industrialization and also sustainability, because we are thinking of the net zero concept. I'm saying this because we cannot go against the sales pace. Sometimes we cannot industrialize because then the process is too fast, and then the building is done and it's empty. But now we will see how new paths are open in front of us in terms of industrialization, and also at the same time our works will be more sustainable, and that will be an added value when it comes to selling them. A question for Jose Manuel. Does your solution contribute any savings in terms of construction time or calendar? Yes, at the Hospitalet, yeah, we've done a building and we will do it in 7 months rather than 13 or 14, so nearly 40% savings, I would say, to be conservative in terms of timeline. And sustainability and industrialization, in our view, need to lead to nearly zero CO2 emissions. They need to entail timeline reduction, reliability, because so far many projects can be improved in terms of reliability, in terms of quality and costs and sustainability, because we work on predictive models. And this needs to be possible at market prices. As Anna says, the end consumer is not willing to pay more in terms of sustainability, for instance, or industrialization. So that's our belief. We need to industrialize in a sustainable manner, or we need to work on sustainability at an industrial manner, and that needs to be possible at market prices. That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma. It's a vicious cycle. There's not enough volume, so we don't reach the economies of scale. We don't reach the economies of scale. There are no competitive prices, so we think that this is going to happen. So we are taking it little by little, step by step, and the public sector is clearly a positive example in this regard. And the Institute EMAP is very good example. And also the private sector with Purnia, we've had a good experience, and we know it's an important topic for you. So large developers are indeed interested in that happening. Also the smaller developers. Just to conclude, the industries don't change overnight, so there won't be a huge change, but rather many small changes. And that's the fact that we are even talking about it. That's a good example, and that's a great step forward. So we need to call it a date. I'm terribly sorry, and I would like to thank you for being so warm in discussing the topic. You've been it's been very nice to listen to you. I would like to thank the attendees, also the City Hall for having organized the session, and all of you for leading this future project. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I will just steal from you one more minute.